Welcome to the Livfiit Listens podcast, a safe space of growth, personal development, and overall wellness with your host, Olivia Catania. Diving into the realms of all things health, conscious living, mental expansion, and much more, this podcast is designed to help you evolve into your best self and live fit. Let's get into the show. This feels so weird. Hi. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even really realize how long it has been until I went to go outline this episode and I realized the date of my last outline that I had written, and it was literally like July 9th or something like that. So I didn't realize it's been like a over solid 3 months of no podcast. I'm sure so many of you guys are like, what the heck? Like, why'd you drop off the face of the earth? So much to get into in this episode. This episode, my main intention is just to catch us all up to speed, check in, kind of regroup, let you guys know what's going on. So I just want to disclaim off the bat, this isn't my normal, usual, like uplifting, new perspectives, all this wisdom to drop. This is more so like an episode for relatability purposes. And again, just to fill you guys in and like bring everyone up to speed. I literally had to dust the dust off of this mic. I'm not even kidding you. When I plugged it in, I was like, oh, like she's a little dusty. So it's been so long, like I said, a full 3 months, which is just kind of insane for me to wrap my head around. The main reason why I took an unintentional step back, like I just also want to be clear, it's not like I was like, screw the podcast and then I just didn't say anything. Like I didn't have the intention to take a break, nor nearly have the intention to take this long of a break. It kind of is just what organically happened. And the past good chunk of time, like honestly, this had been going on for like 8 months. I just had been feeling really lost within myself, with my own perspectives, with my own viewpoints, with my sense of self. And it's really hard for me to get on the mic if I don't feel like I have anything insightful to share, or if I'm not feeling really inspired, or if I'm not having really clear messages. Like if I'm already feeling kind of lost and confused, it's really hard for me to not only to even think of an episode, but also just even speak concisely and articulate my feelings on the mic. Like if I'm feeling confused and in a haze, it's hard for me to even put together an episode, to be honest with you. And this is my passion project. This is something where I really like to share lessons that I have learned or am learning with you guys to help you. And it also even helps me to like talk through things, and you know how you say like it helps you to know something if you can teach it, essentially. So I just didn't feel like I had anything to share. Usually as well, I'm a big thinker. Throughout my week, I'm like thinking about a concept. I'm like, ooh, that would make a great podcast episode. And that's like literally my entire process to making one. It's just simply whatever I am thinking about that week or what's on my mind. And I just wasn't having any of that. Like I wasn't having any inspiration come through. I wasn't having any messages come through. And long story short, like I'm saying, I just was really lost within myself. And it's really hard when I'm not walking the walk myself to try to get up here and, speak of something of value. So it's just like I was in a really huge period of introspection and a hermit period. And I would go through kind of phases of like good days and bad days, good periods, bad periods. And it just was kind of more so like ebbing and flowing, but I still wasn't really seeing the other side of it. But I do feel like right now I have come out on the other side. I feel like I definitely am on an upswing. I feel like I definitely have gone through a rebirth at this time. Basically, because I'm saying I feel a lot better. I have been feeling a lot better. I have so much more clarity. I feel so much more like myself. I feel so much more tapped in. I feel so much more connected. I've been meditating and doing my mindfulness most mornings, which is how you really know that I'm back. And my life as a whole has been on an upswing. So I feel a lot better. And I've said that in the past, but this time I feel like it's here to stay. Like I'm saying, I really think I'm a little bit on the other side of this really struggling period that I had gone through the past few months. It was totally like a quarter life crisis, 100%. And then like additionally, with what I do for work, when stuff gets slow with work, like it's so hard not to identify with it, or at least then I tend to then feel like a failure or what I'm doing isn't working. And then I get all stressed out about like, am I ever going to achieve my dreams and all these things? And then it translates to self-doubt and then having a poor self-image and then lack of belief in myself. And then it's just like this negative feedback loop that just compounds that then bleeds into all areas of my life. So I just was basically riding momentum in the opposite direction. Of course, the irony of it is that it was all working out for me in the end anyways, because it led me to so many different realizations. And like I'm saying, this rebirth of just kind of like this new version of myself. The other thing that I want to say and just be super transparent with you guys on the back end of things, I am active on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, this podcast, my retreats, all my emails, all my brand deals are done by me. All of my editing is done by me. I am like fully a one-man show and I wear a lot of different hats. And yes, there's a ton of similarities across my platforms, but I show up very differently in every platform, meaning each platform does have a different purpose. And so with that, it just, I feel like I also kind of needed this time and I honestly don't have it figured out yet, to be honest with you. I'm still kind of figuring out what's going to be best because it almost comes down to the fact that it's just not really sustainable for me to be present on all of these platforms and do all of these projects that I want to be doing if I'm doing them completely alone. Like it's kind of to the point where I need help, but at the same time, I don't really know how to outsource because everything is me, right? Like I can't have someone else step in to be Olivia, like that's me. And then there's also certain things that I also don't really trust to outsource, if that makes sense. There's just kind of a lot that goes into it. And it's just a very interesting dynamic for what I do for work. And so it just can be challenging to make sure I'm showing up well and to the amount that I would like to, I should say, on all platforms. And it just is a lot if I'm trying to upload to YouTube twice a week, have this once a week, and be present on Instagram stories every day, posting on my Instagram feed, TikToks, doing all my emails. Like it just gets to a point where it's really hard to keep up with, to the point where I like have to be working throughout the weekends. And it's like, yes, I love that I'm all for the grind and the hustle, but at the same time, like it's not great for longevity and sustainability. And I don't want to be working in overdrive like that all the time. So that's kind of another layer to this as well, is just taking a step back to figure out how can I create a sustainable schedule for me? How can I prioritize my platforms? How can I just, rearrange my schedule and my approach in a way that I'm happy with, that I don't get burned out with, that I can still show up my best self on all these platforms. And I know some would say like, oh, well, just like, stop posting on one of those platforms. But the thing is they each serve their own purpose and they all hold their own value. So it's just, I find it challenging to kind of narrow that down personally. Like I'm saying, I feel like I need help, but I don't really even know what I need help with or what I can have help with, if that makes sense. Like I love editing my own stuff because that's how I feel like things really come to life, is like that's like the whole second half of my creative process for me. Emails and brand deals, negotiations, like that is something I can outsource. But at the same time, like I'm very intentional with how I negotiate with brands. Like, I'm not trying to say that someone else can't do it better than me, because they definitely can. But I'm just saying it's basically like a hyper independence thing at the end of the day. Let's just call it what it is. So that's kind of a backstory of like what more so like logistical things that have been going on that I have been working through. But for this episode, I just kind of wanted to also, the second half of this, I wanted to dive into what I have been struggling with. Again, I am feeling so much better. I'm feeling so much more inspired, so much more aligned. And like, I'm really excited to be back on the mic, because I do feel like I have had a lot of revelations lately and a lot of new perspectives and things that I feel inspired to share. And I just feel more inspired myself, which of course always translates through the mic. But I did just want to almost backtrack and share the things that I really have been struggling with. Not so much now, but in the past few months, that was like really making my head spin, just to open up, be transparent, let you guys know what was going on, and also to maybe be a place of resonance and relatability in case you feel like you're the only one going through this. Because I just turned 25 in June, and like I said previously, I am 100% going through a quarter life crisis, especially heavily the past few months, and I felt like I was kind of the only one going through it, or almost by not talking about it and not sharing and also not hearing other people talk about it just made me feel super alone and made me feel like I'm never going to figure these things out. So I just want to share in case you feel similarly and you can be like, okay, like she feels this way too. I'm not the only person it's happening to, meaning, I'll be able to get through this and see the other side of it. And I do want to say, like I'm saying, I am finally seeing the light at the end of this tunnel, and it feels really good. And maybe that could be like another episode of how I kind of worked through insecurity and questioning and like the unknown in life, because I do feel like I am much more at peace with things and I have a different approach of how to stay in alignment with my highest life path while going through periods and times of uncertainty. So first thing that I really had been struggling with is also quick again. I feel like this time of our life, as we're trying to transition into adulthood and make our own life, man, is it just like putting a spotlight on all of our own past childhood traumas. Like, does anyone else feel that way? Because that's what I feel like. So number one, this may be a niche thing, but this like hits me hard. First thing I'm struggling with is feeling like I'm in this weird in-between without a true home, because we're not like in our childhood anymore. Things aren't the way that they were in childhood. Everything is entirely different. We're not in our childhood home, etc. But yet we also haven't created our own home yet, right? Whatever that looks like for you. I feel like, I don't have my own place. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't feel like I have my own home. I just feel like I am 100% in this in-between of this constant search and journey to create my home, meaning so many things that go into that, right? Of where do I even want to live? Do I want to move? How am I going to afford to have my own place? What is my career going to look like? How am I going to have a stable income to support my bills and all of that sort of stuff, and decorating the place? Like, I just feel like right now I know is so temporary where I'm living right now and everything, and this phase of my life I know is so temporary, which in and of itself is a beautiful thing that we should cherish. But at the same time, it makes me feel like this floater. And I think at the end of the day, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm someone who craves a home, right? I'm also a Cancer sun, and I love that grounded feeling of home. Like I even talking about it like makes the brings up just emotion, I want to say, because it's just like a warm hug like in my chest. And I love the concept of home, and home is so important. And again, I think that could be also a reflection of some childhood trauma, because when I was younger, my home and upbringing was such a turbulent, chaotic, aggressive space, and I always would look forward to the day that I would create my own home. Like, genuinely, I always would look forward to when I was older and I was able to create my own family, and also going to friends' houses and things. I would see how much more peaceful their home seemed, at least to me, and I craved that. And so I think it's also just this sense of a desire of my inner child of like yearning for that moment when I have my own home, and being in this weird in-between phase makes her feel kind of lost and insecure, just in the sense of, a lack of stability. So that's like the first thing that I find a really interesting dynamic that really only seems to present itself in your 20s, I feel like, because you're really in the in-between. You have left your old life, but you haven't yet finished building your new one. And I know you're always building your new one, throughout your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. But I feel like you at least have like some sense of your own foundation in your 30s. I'm anticipating. Right now, I just feel like I'm on a raft, you know what I mean? Trying to build, expand my raft out of like these little twigs and logs that I'm like catching in the stream, The next thing, which I think a lot of us can relate to, is this kind of daunting background fear and wondering if I'll ever create the life I've always dreamed of. And this is really scary, honestly, and really hard to face, especially if you're someone like me who is a really big dreamer, who has always really had big goals and dreams. Again, I think from when I was younger, I was a daydreamer. I would daydream about what my life would look like and what I wanted to do. And I think now, being 25 and where I'm at right now, younger me would like thought that I would be farther along by now, I guess. And so that concept makes me feel like, well, shit, what if I actually don't ever get to where I want it to get to? Because when you're younger, everything just seems you have so much time. Like, of course you're going to, achieve it. You haven't like entered the real world yet. So you just think that everything is like A plus B equals C and boom, done. I did it. And I think when, now that I'm older, I'm like, whoa, things weren't as easy as I kind of thought they would be, or things didn't come as quickly, more importantly, than I thought that they would. And so then it kind of starts to create this doubt of like, damn, well, if it didn't happen now, could this actually mean that it may not ever happen? And that's like a really hard pill to swallow. I think it's a good thing in the sense that it will help to motivate us and keep us, charging forward. But that is definitely something that is always in the back of my head. That's been a big thing that has calmed recently in the past couple of months, but that was like huge from last November to, maybe June, I want to say, was a huge fear that I was working through that was constantly kind of in my head. And I think it's also a fear of just not living up to your potential, because for me, that's like really scary, is like running out of time. And, I think it is super clear with my whole Livfiit brand in this podcast. It's like, I just have this whole desire to really evolve into my fullest expression, whether that is becoming or unbecoming everything I am not, right? I think it's everything. And I just have this soul desire that's just in me to constantly evolve and move forward and just come home to myself in whatever way that means. Whether that means, achieving these really innate soul desires that I have of having a family, of having a successful career and a business and all these things. Like, I think I just lost my train of thought now, but that's just something that's really important to me, and it always has been. And so the thought of like not living up to being the best that I can be, I guess, is scary, but I'm also recognizing the kind of egoic fear components that are in that, of thinking that I am not already my best and that I don't have to achieve things to become my best. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I really want to fulfill these soul desires that I feel, and I fear that I may not achieve them. But I know now, again, more recently in these past few months, that if I have these desires on my heart, that's because they want me as well. And as long as I keep showing up to the best that I can every day, my success is inevitable. And I could do a whole other podcast on that, because I feel that so deeply now. And I don't doubt that in the slightest. And the other note that I have written is that I have this fear of letting past me down. Like the 15-year-old me that would daydream out the car window. I'm like, I really don't want to let her down. I won't do it. And so that can be pressure, but also it can be a really beautiful driving force. It's the same feeling I'm anticipating with your children when you're like, oh, I want to do everything I can to make him or her happy. I want to do everything I can to show up for them and fulfill all the promises I've ever made to them. Why am I like emotional? I should have known this was going to happen. I'm like emotional in this podcast. I just am like, everything carries so much emotion, I feel like. But that's like been a huge thing. So that's that. Number 3, kind of going with that, also timelines, right? I think, again, huge relatable point. First step is like, damn, am I ever going to achieve anything I've ever wanted to? And then furthermore, if so, when is that even going to be? Is it going to be now? Is it when I'm 40? Is it when I'm 60? Is it in 6 months? Like, it's this kind of, it's just this unknown, navigating the unknown and being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and being comfortable in just the not knowing can be hard. And, of course you have that. It doesn't consume me that much. Like honestly, I really don't think about it to the day to day at all. But like, it's hard when we're also in the era where every time I open my Instagram, which like, I'm not going to lie, like I honestly love it if I'm being fully honest. Like I love every time I open my Instagram, someone's pregnant, someone had their baby, someone just got engaged, or someone just got married. And I honestly love it though, because I'm like, give me all the tea. Like I just want to see what's going on in it. It is really exciting. And every time it does make me happy, but I would be lying if I said it doesn't ping me in the back of my mind of like, I wonder when that's going to happen for me, or like, am I, behind or whatnot. And then I remind myself like, no, this is like really, this is what you want. Like, don't let society make you feel like you should want something else when it's like, I do want those things, but like genuinely right now I'm so fulfilled and focused on my career and this is what I want right now. But so anyways, that was kind of a side note, but I'm just saying, just timelines in general of like, well, when would I get engaged? And if I get engaged here, when does this mean that I have to get married? And but so when would I be starting having kids? But I really want to make sure I'm like secure in my career. So when do I have to get to this career goal? But it's just like all of these things of timelines. Like, I feel like it just speaks in and of itself can be a challenge when I don't think, timelines honestly are none of our business, if I'm being fully honest with you. And sometimes it always works out when you're not stressing about the when. You know what I mean? It's the same. Oh, here we go. It's the same thing. I remember when I was in high school and you would run your mile, and I always wanted to try to just do my best and like get a good mile time. And I remember I said something to oh my gosh, I remember this is coming so clearly to me. I remember I went and like practiced my mile or something. I ran by myself at on the track at school. And I remember it was like before my last lap, or I had like half of the last lap to go. I checked my pace on my phone and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hit like a 7-minute mile, whatever it was. I don't remember what the time was, but I had a certain goal, right? And I checked my phone and I was like, oh my gosh, sweet. And then I was so caught up on when I was going to cross the finish line, that then by the time I actually went and crossed the finish line, my time was slower. And I remember telling my brother like, well, I was on track to hit this, but then by the time I hit the finish line, it was this. And he was like, that's because you're looking at your phone and you were constantly checking your time. Like, you just have to run and not worry about when you're going to finish, and you'll find out your time later. And kind of with that metaphor saying like, when you're constantly checking, am I there yet? Am I there yet? When am I going to get there? When am I going to get there? It's honestly just slowing down your own path and your own timeline. Whereas opposed to if you just put your head down and you're hyper present and you're hyper focused and you are just living your journey, it's going to come so much quicker. Number 4, this is an interesting one, and this one is very vulnerable for me to share. What else is new? I swear I pour my heart out on my podcast. Okay, I have a lot of anxiety of choosing the correct life partner. This is 100% a result of my own childhood trauma because of my parents being divorced, and the divorce rate is so high. And girl, get it together for real. I just know. Okay, it's hitting me. You guys, this podcast is also just therapy for me, if I'm being honest. Like, I love when you guys say it helps you, because I'm like, this is also helping me. Like, it just helps talking about things. So I feel like it's just became clear to me that this is like my number one life goal. Like, oh my gosh. I have so many goals in my career, in my life, in travel, right? And things I want to do. And I think I finally just now am recognizing fully that having a healthy family, like marriage, is my number one life goal. And I think that's why this feels so scary, because I am so scared of not fulfilling that goal. I've seen how much people have struggled from a breakdown of their marriage, and I feel like I literally can't even finish my freaking sentence. I feel like I have already went through the repercussions and consequences of a marriage falling apart, and that terrifies me that there's a possibility that I could have to go through that again, and even worse, put my future born children through that. And that's just terrifying, like I'm saying. And so it makes me want to be hyper cautious of who I do choose to be my partner. Am I asking the right questions? Am I doing everything in my control to make sure
that this marriage is going to last and be healthy? How am I supposed to know that this marriage is going to translate and still be functional in a parental role, in the time of high stress, in the time of heartbreak, in the time of change in our life? Like, the kicker is that you can't know for sure, right? And I know that. And that's the chance and the leap of faith that you take and the bet that you take on your partner. And I know that's like the beauty in it. But at the same time, it's a really scary, it's just trauma in a nutshell. It's like saying, last time I went and took a pan off the stove, I burned my hand so badly. And now I'm supposed to grab another pan off the stove. You know, I'm looking at it. I'm seeing when the last time there was heat on the stove. I'm trying to see if the handle has rubber or not. But you still don't know for sure if that pot is going to burn you or not when you take it off the stove. And that's kind of the same feeling of, it's just like, I know how badly you can get burned, quite literally. And so it's really hard to want to take that gamble again. But yet the thing is, it's so interesting because I know my soul desires marriage. My soul desires a life partner. And I think my soul chose that trauma I went through when I was younger to show myself. Even after all of that, it's still something I want to show how much of a soul desire it is. But it's just this weird confliction. Like, it's very clear that it's my soul desire versus my egoic human trauma in this lifetime. And I really need to work on clearing that trauma. I really don't know how, because this is something that hits so close to home for me. And I know I do reference my childhood quite a bit. I reference my family quite a bit, but I never share particular details just out of everyone's privacy, including my own. I don't think everything needs to be online. But I also additionally, like, I'm also not someone who talks about it a lot in my day-to-day. Like, my closest friends do not know the harshest things I went through. And I even recently opened up to my boyfriend about some things, and he's like, I had no idea. Like, I wouldn't even have been able to tell, because he only knows our family dynamic now over the past couple of years, which has been the best my family has ever been, which I've said that so many times on this podcast. So he was like, I would have never known. So I just saying that to say that, you know, there was a lot that I went through as a kid that makes this decision feel very challenging and have a lot of emotions around it. And additionally, it's like you hear these stories of people whose partners change, you know, on the 5th year of marriage or the 15th year of marriage. It's just like there's no guarantee. And I have to learn to be okay with that. And I have always been someone to love fearlessly, because when you truly love, you never have lost. It's just, again, really goes back to letting my inner child down. I want to make sure that I make the right decision with who I choose to spend my life with, so that my inner child always has that safety and stability, even though at the end of the day, I'm the one who needs to give that to myself. But anyways, that was so deep and vulnerable and like raw. Was not expecting that. I wrote out this outline, so like click, like, well, I'll just record this quick. Like I need to like check in with them. But anyway, okay. Next thing. The overwhelm of the next step to take was also something I was really struggling with. In our day and age, with the internet, all these things, we have the most career opportunities, we have the most lifestyle options, we have the most travel options that we've ever had, like ever in like human history. And it is such an insane blessing and such an insane privilege. I'm so aware. And it's a privilege that all of us have if you have a device that you're able to listen to this right now. And options are amazing, right? Because they give us choice, and choice is freedom, but it's still the other side of that same coin is that it can feel so overwhelming to the point where you're like drowning. Like basically you're paralyzed with what action to take because you have so many actions that you could take. Decision fatigue, right? So that's like been a thing for me as well. Especially a few months ago, if I was like, do I want to keep doing this? Should I do this? Should I try this? Should I go back to school? Should it, like, just so many different options that can feel like debilitating because you're like standing in the middle of this like freaking 18-way intersection and you're like, wait a second, one of these is supposed to lead me to like happiness and fulfillment, like something, this can't be for real. But I think that has helped me is just that like each step you take is your path, and no matter what step you take, it is leading you to your soul's destiny and what is meant for you. So every step that you take has a lesson in it in some capacity, and so that's how you know it is for you and it is always working out for you. Next one is, this is interesting. It's mourning past versions of yourself and also the unknown exploration of new versions of yourself. So for example, like I basically find myself wondering, am I losing myself or am I stepping into myself? Because like I said, 25 now, I think back to when I was like 20, 21, I felt like that was the first time that I had met the adult version of me, right? So I feel like I would change so much throughout, middle school, high school, everything, early college years. But it seemed just like normal, right? And then I felt like it was all building up to develop like who I'm supposed to be, right? Which I thought when I was 20, I was like, boom, like I'm fully, now I'm developed into my full person, right? I've gone through middle school, high school, college. I've lived, in a different state. I've done some of my own solo traveling. Like I just feel like I met my adult version of myself. And I was like, okay, like this is who I am. And I had so much clarity in who I am. I felt like I really understood who I am. Like I'm saying, I thought I met myself. But of course, now being 25, I'm so different than I was when I was 20, 21, 22. Like I look back at old YouTube videos and I'm like, I can tell how much I feel like I've changed. Like, of course, my core parts of myself are still me for sure. But like, beliefs have changed, lifestyle factors have changed. My approach to things have changed. My style has changed, right? And so all these things. So I'm like, I think back to how I was and who I was when I'm 20 and I realize I'm not that way anymore. And I'm like, wait, am I losing myself? Because I'm like, I thought I established like that's who I am, who adult version of me is, right? I thought I established that at 20. So it's this weird confusion between like, wait, am I losing myself? Do I need to get back to myself? Or am I just simply meeting a new version of myself, but yet it feels so foreign and scary and unknown because I haven't met this version of me before? It's like starting to get comfortable with knowing like you thought you met who you'll always be, but now you're going to have to get comfortable with yourself as you are transitioning into new versions of yourself throughout adulthood, because that's always going to be the case. We're always going to be shifting and evolving. So that's kind of like an interesting thing to wrap my head around, because I would question myself. I'm like, I'm different. And I'm like, wait, am I losing myself? Like, what's wrong with me? But then I'm like, no, like you're supposed to grow. You're supposed to evolve. You're supposed to adapt. Like, it's so cool that I am changing. It's so cool that I get to meet a new version of me. Like, this is what keeps life so refreshing and ensures that you're actually continuing through this earth school that we're at while we're here. And it's interesting and kind of like a beautiful process. Last thing is this feeling of pressure of trying to set up your entire life in this decade. Again, super relatable. I don't think this is the truth, right? But it feels this way, right? Like no one's saying you have to have your whole life figured out in your 20s. But for me, I'm like, I thought that I did, right? And so I feel like I'm supposed to set my entire life up in this one decade. And again, that's just a lot of freaking pressure, people, right? And it's like, there's no need for us to be putting this much pressure on ourselves. But I'm like, again, how am I, like, I need to set up my career. I need to set up myself financially. I need to have all of these things figured out. Again, if I want to have kids at this point, this means I only have this many more years to figure out my career before that point. It's so much pressure for no reason. And then you hear these stories of people in their 30s and their 40s who are still setting up their foundation while they are still moving through life. And it's okay. So it's like, that was something I had to kind of get out of my own head about and get out of my ego.
of feeling like I need to have everything figured out, but that it's hard to remind yourself of that when you feel like you're supposed to be figuring out all the answers in your 20s, and you're like, how am I supposed to know what I want in life? How am I supposed to set everything up in life? Like, I'm only 20. I'm only a 5-year-old adult. How am I supposed to be able to set everything up for when I'm 30, 40, 50? Like, I don't even know how to function. It's just like sometimes it can just be daunting, I guess is all. So those were like some of the main things that I just wanted to share with you guys of what I had been struggling with in my 20s. I'm also just realizing, in my quarter life crisis, I should say, I'm also just realizing I forgot to go through gratitude, and I want to do a quick shout out because I'm really hoping to get her on the podcast, and because she has been a huge reason why I've had a really big turnaround in my mindset and mental health and my perspectives on life. Her name is Allie Ninfo, ALLIENINFO. She has really turned into a mentor for me. I've signed up for one of her courses that's all about like self-image healing, and she has just been amazing. She is also a medium, so I just feel like she really blends the spiritual side with actual neuroscience and rewiring the brain. So like she uses spirituality in her medium, like in intuition, to, I guess, kind of call on the answers, and then she uses neuroscience to actually implement it in the human plane. And I love her. Like, I resonate so much with her. I've listened to so many self-improvement speakers, personal development people, all of these things, and I have never resonated with someone like I have resonated with Allie Ninfo. Like, I resonate with that so much because I feel like I do that in my life. I love the intuition. I love the spiritual side of things. I love the mindset work, but I'm also super into the tangible, discipline, implementable action steps. And she is the same. She meshes everything. And I would love to get her on the podcast. I have to still reach out to her and ask her and see if I can get a hold of her, but that would be amazing. So that's everything in this video, just to give you a quick run through of all the things I'm struggling with in my mid-20s. It's feeling like I'm in this in-between without a true home, wondering if I'll ever create the life I've always dreamed of, timelines, the anxiety of choosing your life partner, the overwhelm of the next step to take, mourning past versions of yourself and the unknown explorations of new ones, and the pressure to try to set up your entire life in this one decade. So hopefully this didn't leave anyone more overwhelmed. Again, I just was trying to have, vulnerable moment, share what's going on, offer some relatability, to know that it's okay if you're feeling these things. It's normal. These things aren't the truth. Take a breath, go touch some grass. Everything's going to be okay. You are exactly where you were meant to be, even if it doesn't feel like it. Like, I promise you, everything is always working out for you. And you can trust that and know that by knowing every single thing that you've ever experienced at least has a lesson in it for you. And even if it's not showing you what you want, maybe in that moment, it's showing you what did I just say? Even if it's not showing you what you want, it's at least showing you what you don't want, which is still valuable, right? Everything is always happening for us. And you just have to keep trusting. And in these time periods of feeling unknown, of feeling lost, of feeling overwhelmed, like, these are always, always, always the tipping points of breakthroughs. And I can confidently say I have had some of the best, like the past couple of months, I've had the best couple of months I've had in a few years at this point. I have so much clarity. I can feel myself stepping into my power. The opportunities, the things that have come my way have been absolutely amazing. Some of my biggest dreams, truly, which we can get into another podcast episode. I want to do one about what I did to really help some big manifestations finally come through. Some of my biggest dreams I've been dreaming about finally just came my way. So I just want to say, if you're going through a dark period or feeling lost and overwhelmed, you are on your breaking point in the best way. Everything is falling apart so that it can fall into place. Okay, I promise you. So for this affirmation, for the episode, I have: my path never veers me wrong because I know it is always working for my highest good. My path never veers me wrong because I know it is always working for my highest good. How much does that resonate? You know what I'm saying? I'm telling you, over these past 8 months, I was like, this is it. I'm going down the tubes. Like, this is it. I'm done. And it was finally when I recognized that all of these things that I think are so quote unquote bad and are my, a cement block tied to my foot, they're actually all things that are helping lift me up into my next level. They're all things that are needing to be purged and revealed to me so that I can actually work through them, face them, and release them, and then therefore be free to move up to my next level. So I love you guys so, so much. I hope this was kind of some sense of a comforting episode, one that made you feel like I was giving you a hug. Also, if you do need a hug today, I'm giving you a virtual one, okay, through the mic. I am sending you guys so, so much love. Thank you so much for your time. I don't want to make a promise that I'm going to get an episode next week. We will see how things go. I've been so insanely busy now the past couple of weeks because work has picked up so much, especially on the back end of things. But this felt really good, and I'm really happy to have been able to connect with you guys today. I love you guys so much, and hopefully I'll see you in my next episode, whenever that is. Peace out.